your lunch? Do you think you have had your lunch and it is time for you to have a nap? I'm sorry, I'm just joking. I know you're all responsible teachers like me, and nobody is willing to sleep. And I just happened to see your timetable. I saw in it by Professor Nataraj Hulia, you have had a session on Indian Dalit autobiographies. Am I right? Am I right? Please, someone.
No, it was not. It was not exclusively on autobiographies. It was related to Dalit literature. Of course. He was trying to connect Dalit literature and Afro-American literature.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I see some of my friends are also there here. Anyway, why Dalit autobiographies? Actually, in fact, when I wanted to discuss on refresher course, I was just wondering what I will discuss on. That moment, it didn't occur to me what I need to. So I just thought I'll give you Dalit autobiographies. Actually, I haven't worked on Dalit autobiographies for my research, though one of the writers I opted for my research was Bama, whose Karaku is an autobiography on the one hand, and some people even view it as an autobiographical novel too. You must have come across. May I know how many of you are English teachers? I believe my English is quite simple. In case you are not able to follow any word for that matter, please, you can stop me without any inhibition at all. I think my English is very simple that anybody can come easily infer it, I believe. With this, may I? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what I thought is, I was wondering what I must discuss with you, but then I was not sure. Initially, I thought I'll discuss on some other work, but then I couldn't make it. Then I decided to work on, discuss with you people, my fellow colleagues in different colleges, Dalit autobiographies. When I said Dalit autobiographies, I must say that I must confess with you that even I didn't know that there are so many Dalit autobiographies. I started working on it and I was surprised to see so many autobiographies. Easily I can count 2 dozens of autobiographies at a stretch. Okay. And I was surprised, you know, when I have worked on women autobiographies, I had to work on a theoretician on autobiographies called Jelinek. Okay, Jelinek. He is pronounced as Jelinek. And Jelinek says that when one writes an autobiography, what is really important for an autobiographer is to have a unique self. Okay. An autobiographer needs to have a unique self. Unique self is an individual personality, which is unique, special, well advanced in his or her area. That's how an autobiography exists, according to Jelinek. But you know, the autobiographies by Dalit are something which doesn't seem to be unique in a way that Jelinek represents them. You know, all of us are aware that very interestingly, Daya Pawar, a writer of the autobiography called Baluta. Anybody from Maharashtra here? Anybody from Maharashtra here? Any Shobha is from Maharashtra? Shobha, are you from Maharashtra? Shobha Ellen?
No, ma'am.
No. Anybody here? Okay. In case you aren't there, I'll explain you the term Baluta. You know, Daya Pawar actually writes his names his autobiography as Baluta. You know, what do you know what is Baluta? Baluta is a public servant, and this public servant name is given to his autobiography, Baluta, Daya Pawar. Incidentally, that's the first Dalit autobiography in India. You know what he does is, he gives an account of his life in this autobiography, Daya Pawar. When he gives an account of this autobiography, he speaks of the 52 rights that Dalit have got. Okay, how ironical it is when there is a denial of basic needs to a section of society in India. We speak of 52 rights given to them. And of course, he gives us a very interesting account of the story connected to these 52 rights. You know, there was this Padshah, that's how he says, or Badshah. Badshah is the emperor of Bidar, who wanted to construct some fort. Okay, when he wanted to construct a fort, the foundation of his fort did not sit well. It used to grounded. It used to be grounded always. So what he does is, he decided to, he was wondering, Badshah used to wondering what to be done about it. Then in his dream, he had a dream which said that one of the person must sacrifice his first daughter and first son to this fort's foundation. Only then it will be properly constructed. Now the emperor Badshah in the morning narrates this to his employee, one of his employees, who happens to be a Mahar of Maharashtra. Okay, and when he hears, without any inhibition, he immediately offers his son and daughter-in-law to the fort. And it is said that after the fort is after these people, son and the daughter-in-law, were buried alive under the foundation of the fort stood well. Now the Badshah was so pleased, and then he gave 52 rights to these Mahars in the village. This is a story that Daya Pawar narrates in his autobiography. There is another incident, he says, which is also associated with these 252 rights. He says that there was a very virile and energetic young man in the area, in the region. And this region's king wanted to send his daughter to some other region. But the daughter had to pass through a dense forest, which was ferocious. So now the king was worried how to send this daughter without any proper security. Then he thought of taking the help of this Mahar young man, who was virile and very energetic, very attractive too, young. You know, he had to take care of the king's daughter and pass her through this dense jungle. Of course, he did his duty very meticulously and also with all loyalty. But then, you know, a king's court is always a place for conspiracy. We all are aware of. And one of the employees in one of the people, some of the people in the court, they said that, no, actually, this young man must have had a sort of a relationship with the king's daughter. But you know, the young man, before he went to take his king's daughter to the forest, he had kept a box under the control of the king. And he says, and he also would have told the king that, you know, my lord, I have kept something precious in this box. You must somehow protect it until I come back. When he had heard of allegations, what he does is, he tells the king, my lord, I had left a box with you. Please return it to me now. Now the king gives back the box, and the box was supposed to have the penis of the young man. And you know, the king was so pleased with the young man that the young man had already knew that he would have had some accusations, definitely. He would have in the future. that he was aware of. So he had taken necessary precautions. And the king was so pleased with the young man that he gave him 52 rights, it is said. After having said this 52 stories, which have been 52 rights assigned to Dalits, let me get back to the kind of the plight of Dalits in India. You know, actually, I can count with you that at least 24 autobiographies by both men and women as of now. I told you the first one is by Daya Pawar in Marathi language. And then you have the autobiography with a title, Juthan. Once again, it is a Marathi autobiography written in 1997 by Om Prakash Valmiki. And you know, what do you mean by Juthan? Juthan means leftover food in a plate. Okay. And then you have Changyaruk. Changyaruk is a Punjabi autobiography which has been written by a Chamar. Okay. And whose name is Balbir Madhopuri. He has been in administrative service. He has been in an administrative service in Air India. Okay. And then you have another autobiography. After Daya Pawar has written his first autobiography in 1978, that was followed by three autobiographies immediately, but with a span of 10 years. Lakshman Mane's Upara and Uchalya. And then you have Akarmashi by Sharan Kumar Limbale. And then you have The Whole Truth and Nothing But the Truth, a Dalit Life by Kesha Shivram. Okay. And actually Kesha Shivram is actually a pen name for the writer B.S. Jadhav, you know. Please remind me when it is 45 minutes, because I would like to just sum up the arguments that I am going to present. Please remind me. Now we must have already passed 15 minutes. Okay. And then, you know, Changyaruk is actually a Punjabi autobiography written by Balbir Madhopuri. And then B.S. Jadhav's The Whole Truth and Nothing But the Truth, a Dalit Life by Kesha Shivram or B.S. Jadhav. And then you have, this also has won a Dasi Jeevan Award by Gujarati government in 2003. And of course, you know the autobiographies which are written in Dalit autobiographies which are written in Kannada, Urukeri by Sidlingaya, and then Arvind Malguti's Government Brahmana. Recently, he has also come out with another autobiography, okay, and which I could not go through. And then, you know, you have Baburao Bagul's autobiography, Daja Dhale's autobiography, The Scar by Gunashekharan, which was written in Tamil, and Memoirs of a Dalit Communist by B.R. More. Like this, there are around more than a dozen of autobiographies. I can simply tell you the names of these many things and the kind of the autobiographies which are written in. Until now, we found autobiographies written in Kannada, Tamil, and then Telugu also must be there are autobiographies which I could not mention now. Okay, and then Gujarati and Marathi, Punjabi languages. You know, these are very different languages, autobiographies which are written in different languages. This is a very important point to remember that these autobiographies are written in different languages. Most of them are translated later. Okay, none of these are written in English. You must remember all these autobiographies have been translated to English. And then let us come back to women's autobiographies which have come out. Okay, and Veeramma's Dalit Life is one autobiography which has been written in Tamil, and then Bama's Karaku has also been written in Tamil, and then you know there is this Sumitra Mehrol's Tute Pankhon Se Parvaz Thak is another autobiography which has been written in Marathi again. Okay, and what she does is actually this Sumitra Mehrol is she is a physically disabled person, And she writes in her autobiography how hard it was for her to face. She is a PhD holder too, okay? Not just a physically disabled woman. And you know what she says is, very interestingly, she says that physical disability is better than the social disability, pointing out about the Dalit autobiography, Dalit condition in India. She mentions that, okay? Physical disability is better than the social disability. Actually, while writing an introduction to this autobiography, Balbir Madhupuri, Changyaruk, you know, I believe this autobiography is seen by everybody. Can you see this book? Okay. While writing an introduction to this autobiography, you know, the scholar Tripti Jain says that what does she say is actually the poverty, suffering, agony, and the denial of basic needs are all common to poor people. Okay. Bhima Nayak, is there anything funny? Sir, Dr. Bhima Nayak, is there anything funny? Did I say anything funny? I'm not, in case I am saying anything funny, I will change it. Okay. You know, I was talking about this Tripti Jain's introduction to Changyaruk. What she says is, Tripti Jain, a scholar, she says that, you know, poverty and suffering, pain, all such things are common to poor people in India. But what is unique about this Dalit experience is the way they have been denied social dignity. Okay. She says that this social exclusion is something which is very hard to cope with. That is what all the great writers, this Namdev Dhasal, you know, Namdev Dhasal, great writer in Marathi, and his wife also comes out with an autobiography actually, which is of course after separation from Namdev Dhasal, she writes, you know, and this kind of social exclusion is something which all the great writers, whether it is Arvind Malgati, who are all supposed to be socially recognized with proper education and with some societal position. In fact, one of my friends related it with the kind of the position of Afro-Americans or Black people in England. Nelson Mandela, in his autobiography, he says that, you know, when he had been to his office for the first time, a woman came there and she said, this is, she gave them to, along with Nelson Mandela, there was another Black man. He gave him a cup of, this woman who came, she gave both Mandela and his friend a cup or 2 cups to each of them. These 2 cups are for the new employees, she said with a smile. Immediately Nelson Mandela knew that it was not new cup, this was an exclusive cup for Dalits. They were not supposed to use any other cups. In fact, Amrita Pritam also narrates one such incident in her autobiography, where these cups, tumblers were kept for these Muslims. Of course, she fought against it, against her granny's attitude towards Muslims, which she narrated it to her father, and her father removed those separate tumblers from the shelf. That's a different story. But you know, all the Dalit autobiographies, whether it is Changyaruk by Balbir Madhopuri or Outcast by Sharan Kumar Limbale, or even the other autobiography, Daya Pawar's Baluta, or even Kesha Shivram, or even Karako by Bama, all of them speak of social exclusion. They have done to some extent well in their lives. They have got education. Actually, you know, it is Ambedkar who gave a call to these many writers. He said, educate, unite, agitate. This was the call of Ambedkar when they got educated, true. But unite was something which I think these Dalit writers could not do. Maybe because of the kind of different things, until now, I started with Jelinek's statement. What did Jelinek say? Jelinek says that actually an autobiography expects a precondition that it must have a unique personality of an individual. Okay, but these are the people in which way are they unique? They were denied basic requirements. Food, shelter, water was denied to them. Actually, it is another autobiography by Dadabhai Malhar More. Okay, Dadabhai Malhar More is another writer who writes an autobiography called Gabala. He belongs to a caste of Dalits, which keeps moving from one locality to another locality. Okay, they have a village, but their profession is to beg and have food, and wherever they would go, they would be viewed as thieves. They would be viewed as somebody without any morals about themselves. They would be ill-treated, and the food would be thrown. Many of you being students of literature must have heard of Mulk Raj Anand's Untouchable. And when I was told that Gandhi initially was not happy with Untouchable, it was shown to Gandhi by Mulk Raj Anand, and Mulk Raj Anand later did some sort of editions which were suggested by Gandhi. Then he published this book. Some people find it really not convincing that a work like Untouchable exists, and some people would not even be convinced that there is some sort of equality in society, they say. But actually, it is Daya Pawar who views education almost like a poison. He says education is like a poison. It may a little surprise all of us, because Karaku, the writer of Karaku, she says Bama that education made her realize, understand, but then Bama feels that when I met Bama, I spoke to her, she said that being educated, she was handicapped. She could not protest the injustice that prevailed in society, because by now she is refined and she can't really speak out the way she used to protest initially, or the way her fellow beings used to protest initially. Okay, and the writer Daya Pawar also says that education is poison. Don't you think it's quite contradictory to what Ambedkar gave a call? All these writers invariably are influenced by Ambedkar. Okay, they are all influenced by Ambedkar, and they feel really grateful to the way Ambedkar attempted to bring in the sort of an equality in society, at least constitutional equality, if it is not practiced in real life. Okay, they say that education is something which handicapped them. It's a poison. Why do you think they would have said that? Let me get back to the earlier point, that the varieties of Dalits in India is so many. I was told that it's more than what percentage? 1 in every 6 Indians is a Dalit altogether. Okay, it is Tripti Jain who comes out with this kind of numbers. Okay, and in spite of that, you find so much of variety, so much of diversity among Dalits. Like, very ironically, Changyaruk's writer Balbir Madhopuri speaks of the kind of the discrimination that prevails in Indian society. He says that people who fought for equality, who got their equality, denied equality to certain section of society. Okay, you understand the point. Madhopuri so well says that, Balbir Madhopuri, people who fought for equality. We didn't have equality, we didn't have freedom, you know. We were slaves of English people until 1947. I mean, we were slaves. If you happen to know the way Dondiya Wagha or Tipu Sultan or any any great kings, the way they were assassinated or they were killed in the battlefield, we all know that we were none but slaves. We had to follow Jallianwala Bagh, the event. Colonel O'Dwyer, instead of being punished, was given a promotion when he went back to England. We feel that our bloods will be boiling when we hear something of that sort. What kind of injustice? Balbir Madhopuri so well says that people who craved for freedom, who fought for freedom, who fought and got their equality and freedom, they denied freedom and equality to this section of society. And you know, he speaks of the 52 rights in connection with this kind of freedom and equality. What was considered as rights was actually a menial labor without any proper compensation to the labor. And these 52 labor rights included doing the menial job, taking the tax to the government of the villagers. And in fact, this is Baluta. In Baluta, this Daya Power gives us an event of taking tax from village to the city. There it happened thus once. There was a widow from a Mahar community. She was supposed to take the tax of the people to the city. She did it. But you know, she was an uneducated woman. And all the more she was a woman also, widow. So gullible she is. She is not so sure and certain like the confident people. Very diffident she was. She went and paid the tax. The clerk there took it and then he did not give the receipt. And she forgot to ask the receipt also. She came back to the village. And then she discovered that she did not take the receipt at all. And she was so scared and she was so upset, so frightened. She went back and asked the clerk. But the clerk was like a very foxy, very cunning he was. He denied and he slapped on the face of this woman saying that, where did you pay the money? You know, the woman came, and once she came to the village, she was accused by everybody, alleged by everybody as somebody who has taken the money of the villagers. And you know, this kind of taking the accusation ultimately lodged her in jail. And the clerk who took the money acted ignorant and he never bothered about the plight of this woman. Okay. This is the plight of the 52, the people who have 52 rights. They had to do this bhaja bhajanti during the weddings, and then they had to take the bride to her husband's house. See, these are the kind of the social roles which have been assigned to Dalits. They had to clean the wastage, human wastage on their own. Starting from there, they had to take care of water, etc., etc. You know, these are the varieties of the works which have been assigned to different section of Dalit, different groups of Dalits. On the one hand, they would do these, take up these responsibilities, and they would do. But you know, they were not given money at all. They were returned in kind. But when they were returned in kind, it used to be some sort of grains during harvest season. But when there would be harvest season, zamindars who had these many laborers among Dalits, they would make them work very hard. Actually, in Changyaruk also, whose Balbir Madhopuri speaks of his brother who would go to zamindars so frequently, and he was made to work until he would be almost drained completely. without any energy left out. Okay. But then when the grain should be given to during harvest season, grain should be given to these many people, you know, they were not given money or grains properly. They would scold them as if, is it your father's field that you come as if it is your right? These were the ones who did the labor. Okay. And after being worked so hard in the field, they were denied food at all. Okay. They were denied grains, proper grains. They were even denied money. Money was never in the picture at all. It was always the in kind that they would return. When it comes to chamars, the condition there was all the more hard. Actually, you know, while writing an introduction, Tripti Jain says that the condition in Punjab was different. Okay. Punjab initially, you know, initially in India, Dalits population was very high in Punjab. But then now it is in UP. Dalit population is very high in UP. After the division or after this partition of India with Pakistan, Muslims went off there, and there were some Hindus who were left. And then, you know, this land act, which denied owning of lands to Dalits in Punjab. Such situation was there. So, but then later, it is in later 1920 onwards, some rights were given to these Dalits. Okay, they were given some rights to land, and you know, actually, Balbir Madhopuri gives us an account of what kind of services were given by these Dalits and how they were paid in return. You know, he gives account of many of the Dalit category, many of the Dalit sections, and he says they were given 8 seer or 4 seer of rice or grains, whichever were grown in Punjab, or even wheat for that matter. And then in one caste, they would pay for a daughter's wedding. In another caste, they would pay for both son and daughter's wedding. And when it comes to chamars, they were giving only carcass of the dead animal. Okay. Carcass is the dead body of the dead animal was given to chamars. And if Changyaruk's Balbir Madhopuri says that, Baluta's Daya Pawar also says that actually there was no timetable given to Dalits. There was no limits for their work. They had to work from morning to the night. Whenever Dalits would be called, they had to go. And in case they would go clean in the village, the high caste or caste Hindus would, if a Dalit boy would go to the village after taking bath and wearing good clothes, if he goes to the other areas, he would be thrown mud on him. And if the boy protests, definitely he would be beaten up. This is the conditions that they speak of. Okay. And, you know, after saying that, he finds that this is the kind of the injustice which was meted out to them. They were denied basic food, shelter, and water too. The ones, actually it is Balbir Singh, Balbir Madhopuri, who once again speaks of the kind of digging of wells in his village. When these people would dig the well, water would come there in the well. But after the water comes, it would be pure water, would be used by caste Hindus. If they touch the water would be impure. This kind of injustice is also seen by Balbir Madhopuri in Changyaruk. Okay. And, you know, these autobiographies, when they write these autobiographies, they name them differently. Baluta, as I spoke, is 52 rights. And then Changyaruk is against night. And, you know, Karaku by Bama is double-edged sword, you know. they name their autobiographies to speak of the harsh conditions or the sufferings that these Dalits are made to undergo, irrespective of their conditions. In fact, Daya Pawar even says the way he has been forced to do the menial works even after he was being educated. You know, this kind of injustice, when each autobiography speak of and each speaks in a different ways. You also must notice that there are different sort of bifurcations which exist in Dalit communities, Dalit caste itself. Okay, they have a sort of a social hierarchy among themselves, and you know, there are also some region specific problems which each Dalit faces. And apart from region specific problems, you also have this gender specific problems that they have. Okay, each autobiographies need not be homogenized. That's my point. You know, when these autobiographies are written by different writers, what they do is they come out with their childhood experiences, and they say that until a very long time they were ignorant of their social status. Once their consciousness starts blooming, they are forced to or compelled to be aware of their marginalized or peripheral condition, you know, and this kind of peripheral condition will induce in them an idea to come out of it. But you know, education again is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, when it gives a sort of awareness among these Dalits, they will become conscious of their status. If you remember Baka is the one who would not like to eat food like his brother Laka and his father Laka and his brother Raka eats. They don't mind, Laka and Raka don't mind eating the food which has been wet by water. The Tommies are the English soldiers. After eating their food, you know what they do is they wash their hands, and with the remaining food, those food was given to these leftover food was given to Dalits. Since they don't have any means of earning food, all the labor that they goes penniless. Okay, all the labor, they are made to work from morning to the evening, but still their labor goes penniless on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm sorry. On the one hand, their work goes penniless. On the other hand, they don't have any means of earning. They don't have lands at all. And their clothing is something which is denied to them. Proper clothing. They have to take some clothing which are left over. Baka, he does that. He is somebody, whenever he could get a little money, he would buy from second-hand stalls the clothings of the Englishmen. Though, what if these clothes become ill-fitted to Baka? He feels very proud calling himself a gentleman. Okay, gentleman like an English man. And this kind of denial, you know, of basic food, shelter, clothing to Dalits on the one hand, this caste Hindus also accuse them of lack of cleanliness, okay, lack of culture, in other words, okay. You know, writers like Sharan Kumar Limbale have a very interesting argument to make. Actually, Sharan Kumar Limbale's autobiography is titled Akkar Mashi. Akkar Mashi means half caste or outcast. Okay, he is a child born to a Lingayat father and a Dalit mother. Okay, though he is born to a Lingayat father, his identity is never of a Lingayat on the one hand, nor can he be a complete Dalit. And his parents, his mother, and not parents actually, his mother and his grandmother, maternal grandmother, they are the ones who bring him up, you know. And when they, how do they bring him up? They bring him up by selling the low quality liquor to people. And his mother, while sells low quality liquor to people, she also had to sell herself to bring up the son. And Sharan Kumar Limbale actually feels that he is denied an identity as an individual. Okay, as an individual. He even goes to his father, biological father, who refuses to acknowledge him as his son. Okay, you know, when they get education or awareness, they feel really disturbed about their status, and they feel actually a sort of what I must say, disgusted about their own status. But then it is their status, they'll have to come out of it. How do they do that? In that condition, you know, education is a double-edged sword. When they are educated, when it creates an awareness or consciousness in them on the one hand, on the other hand, education also makes them timid. Timid in the sense they cannot, like their ignorant fellow beings in their community, fight teeth and nail with the injustice that has been meted to them. Okay, and they feel that they are unable to, they start viewing the multiple dimensions of injustice that has surrounded them. Okay, that kind of multiple layered injustice, something which probably makes them handicapped. You know, that's how Ambedkar's call of education, on the one hand, when makes them learned, makes them aware of their situation, on the other hand also makes them ill-equipped, and ill-equipped once because of their sensitivity, their growing sensitivity, on the other hand also because of a sort of an alienation that they feel in their own community. The moment they are their consciousness is bloomed, they don't belong to their community at all. That is, somewhere they are segregated from their own people. This kind of thing would deny them a sort of a unity that would have probably changed the social scenario in society, in Indian society. And the kind of diversity among Dalits I was speaking about, you know, of course, I am not equipped to tell you what are the kind of the diversity which are there, but they are innumerable. I tell you, there are many diversity, and this kind of diversity would also segregate them, or that divides them, because they'll start having their own hierarchy. This hierarchy is something which is not really welcoming. It's like what Daya Power speaks of, not Daya Power. This Balbir Madhopuri speaks of caste Hindus. If caste Hindus have been denied freedom and they were unhappy with Britishers, okay, and they fought against Britishers for freedom and equality. Now Dalits, some community fighting against this kind of injustice and inequality on the one hand, but then again they are practicing this kind of what I must say, segregation or exclusion in their own community. And the kind of the challenges that Dalits face in India, I feel, going by these autobiographies, are region specific, culture specific, and also social and political milieu or scenario or the background is something which is going to play a very important role. You know, in fact, I gave you an instance of what a young boy, these Dalit boys, when they go to villages dressed properly, they were thrown the filth that on their clothing. You know, I mentioned it. This kind of throwing the filth or flinging the filth at them speaks of a sort of a displeasure or a sort of inequality that probably is something which is what I must say, imbibed from a sort of a culture. Okay, culture I mean in double inverted commas. Okay, which would encourage this kind of inequality in society. Okay, equality is like anything big, not easy to describe. Okay, what I mean is we speak of life, but life, when one sees, has different dimensions to it. Okay, these dimensions are not easy to be explored. So equality is also something which is very challenging to our society. When on the one hand, people like Periyar, Gandhi, Ambedkar, Phule, and Mahadeva Ranade, many have been struggling to bring in so much of what I must say, meaning to life by bringing in equality. You know, you all are familiar to a movie that has come in Tamil, which has drawn a lot of attention. Bhim, you know, Bhim is the movie's name, which speaks of which is based on the life of a lawyer by name Chandru, who fought for the sake of some section of society, okay, which has brought in so much of disturbance in society. You know, we aren't convinced by the kind of the society is not convinced by the kind of the views that prevail in society, or the views that have been emerging rather than prevailing. Okay, and then, you know, when there is, if the education would bring in a sense of shame, or it would make them diffident, or it would make them ill-equipped, how do they unite? And where is the question of agitating? Okay, agitating is something which is not possible at all. You know, there is, we in Indian society speak of, in yoga, you know, we speak of 5 koshas this human body is made of. You know, this human body is made of 5 koshas, pancha koshas they say, and they attribute 5 elements are your earth, water, air, ether, and fire. These are the 5 elements which contribute to the making of a human body, they say. And Annamaya Kosha, they say human body is also Annamaya Kosha. And that Annamaya Kosha can be grown or can make all other koshas nourishing only when one gets Anna. Okay, Anna is basic food, and that food is denied to a section of our society, of which any society which calls itself must be really thoughtful of. How can it be denied? You know, actually, in one of the autobiographies by Dalits, Akarmashi, by Sharan Kumar Limbale, he narrates an incident in his autobiography. Actually, his autobiography opens with that. You know, it is a school, and Sharan Kumar Limbale, along with his friends, goes to a picnic in the school. And you know, when all the boys together go to a picnic, this group of Dalit boys goes the other side during the lunch time in picnic. And many of the Dalit boys don't have anything at all to take from home because there is an abject poverty at home. Okay. So some boys have the pieces of roti or something, and even in a very, very base containers. They open, but then they share whatever they have among themselves. After that, comes there is another group of school students, which is made another group. That's the caste Hindus. They have food with them, and they have the food, and the leftovers are given to these boys. These boys take the food and they eat it. We all are today educated. What do we teach our children? We teach our children not to accept anything which is given to us. Okay? Even if it is something delicious, even if it is a delicacy, we teach our children not to accept anything from anybody. But here is an event which is narrated by Sharan Kumar Limbale, that he says that leftovers of others' food are served to these children, they eat it. But the worst part of the story comes later. Sharan Kumar Limbale, along with his friends, goes home, and after going home, what he does is he narrates it to his mother and granny. What would we have done? We would be really upset if our children do that. Do we or don't we? But Sharan Kumar Limbale's mother and granny are upset that the children ate all the leftovers by themselves. They did not bring in the food for them, the delicacies to them. It reminds me of another story by Premchand, Kafan. I'm sure many of you must be aware of this story, Kafan. Kafan is a story of a poor family where there is a husband and a wife and husband's father-in-law. I'm sure some of you might have read the story. It's an abject poverty that haunts the family. But then, the daughter-in-law is of the family, the woman in the family is full-term pregnant. But they don't have anything to eat. And these two men are drunkards. So heavy drunkards that whatever the little money they get, they use the money for drinking. They somehow get some potatoes. And it is an absolutely cold winter. And during winter, there is so much of chill that these people feel. And amidst the chill, what they do is they do have a fire, and in the fire, they put the potato. Meanwhile, the full-term pregnant woman is inside the house, and her time to deliver the child has come, and in absolute agony, she keeps crying, and she wants somebody's presence also. There must be an extreme malnutrition with which this woman suffers. And she keeps crying for somebody's company. Husband, who was the reason for her pregnancy, never enters inside the house because of the fear that the potato might be eaten by the father. And the father would not go in. He says, why don't you go in? The father says, why don't you go in? So both of them don't go. In between, this woman cannot deliver the child. During this delivery, she passes away. Okay. And after this passing away of this woman, once again, these two men go away to people, and go away to the village, seeking for money to bury her. They want money for kafan. Okay, kafan is a shroud, a covering on the dead body of an individual. Okay, they go in search of this money, but were they able to get the money? They were able to get the money. Instead of the shroud, once again, they drink and they forget themselves. They somewhere lie down. That is where the story ends. Whom do we blame? Do we blame these two men for being drunkards? Or do we blame the society which has created such drunken men or such abject poverty in a section of society, which otherwise is well off and doing so well. There are rich people in the society. That is where the story stops. And with this story, let me get back to the story of the autobiographies of Dalits, where they don't have this kind of nutrition at all. Not only here. I spoke of these autobiographies not being able to be homogenized. You know, you can't homogenize these autobiographies. Though Jelinek speaks of a unique personality, though they may not have unique personality in Jelinek's sense. They may not have achieved great in society because of the kind of the norms that our society have got, but they cannot be homogenized. They have their own unique representations, these autobiographies, for the reasons that our society has got. They are culture specific, region specific, language specific, and I would say they are also idiosyncratic. They are individually specific. Each autobiography represents the individual personality of an individual. That is the kind of the idea that I could come across after I went through these many autobiographies. And then education can be a double-edged sword in their lives. Yes, of course, it cannot be, one cannot deny oneself to be educated, though education becomes very hard for them to do after being educated. I think my time now is up, though none of you reminded me. Okay, so I tell you that this kind of things would make these Dalit autobiographies very unique, and I think it would become an extremely interesting area of study because there are multiple sorts of writings which are coming up. And I do notice a sort of a categorization even among these autobiographies. That is one which is written by some of the educated people with a sort of a strategies that they employ in their autobiographies. You know, I find the very self-representations are with some strategies. Okay. Why do they write it with some strategies? They have to employ a strategy in an autobiography to represent themselves. Okay. In fact, Baluta starts with the two sorts of a narration. The writer talking to himself. Okay. Such thing even happens in another of the French autobiography. Okay. Talking about oneself as an outsider. And Bama, what she does is, she doesn't name her characters at all initially. When in her childhood, they all have nicknames, and these nicknames induce so much of humor among readers. Okay. But as she keeps growing old, you know, her narration becomes grave, and there are images which are extremely powerful, and these images are of the images of cage. Okay, cage that imprisons somebody. Thus, I find the strategizing of some autobiographies which have been by the educated to make them audible, make themselves audible or convincing to the society on the one hand. On the other hand, you know, you also have autobiographies which are written without much of the what I must say, I wouldn't call them without much of the strategies, but without any sort of embellishments to it. Okay, I can say that. I would view them as Dada Saheb Malhar More's Gabala, Upara, Uchalya, and which are the other ones. These are the ones which I find them as not with the educated dimensions to it. Even Charan Kumar Limbale is to some extent. With this, let me take let me stop at this juncture. allow you to come out with your feedbacks or your clarifications or your differences, whatever it is, you are welcome. I'm very much here with you for how many minutes? 15 more minutes, I believe. Is it 15 more minutes? Am I right?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Thank you very much for a very eloquent account of Dalit autobiographies in India. I would like to seek a clarification. Like you said that they cannot be homogenized, but what apart from the insults, the humiliations, the shame, the hardships that the Dalits go through, what else? What kind of distinction do you see between one and the other autobiography of Dalits? Could you shed a little
Elaborate?
more? Yeah.
Okay, well. See, I told you that these autobiographies can't be homogenized. If you can homogenize on the basis of the humiliation, suffering, the agonies, deprivation that they go through. But what differentiates an autobiography from another is something which is, I told you, they are culture specific by the kind of the professions that they are made to pursue, and by the kind of the way that they face society makes it different. By the way they take their individual self above this social limitation makes them different. Okay. You know, I'll give you an instance, some examples from the autobiographies themselves. Bama actually gets education because her brother Gautam tells her that she must be educated to face this kind of inequality in society. She goes through this kind of education. She even joins a Christian order. But then, you know, the Christian order has a different kind of discrimination. She comes out of the church. I must tell you, Bama leads her life, apart from being a writer, she leads her life by being a teacher in primary school in Uttarmeruru village, somewhere in Tamil Nadu. Okay. And not just that, she has come out with many collections of short stories called Kisumbukaran, I believe, Haramskaram and other stories. And then there is Sangati, another autobiographical novel. She has been writing. She has been a social activist. She goes abroad. Actually, some of her works have also been translated to French and other languages apart from English. Then, you know, the writers like, other writers like Sharan Kumar Limbale, you know, he has been aware of his condition, he's conscious of his condition. He tries to come out of it. He comes to city and he leads his life independently. But then he is also conscious of the kind of the discrimination that prevails in society. Okay. Dr. Chandan, you are hearing, I believe. Are you listening to me? Okay. And then, you know, Madhopuri, I spoke of Balbir Madhopuri. He is an educated man. And then, you know, being an educated man, when he is conscious of his position, through education, he tries to outgrow his condition on the one hand, and also by expressing himself. Actually, he gives in his introduction that he happened to come across a Punjabi Dalit autobiography, and after reading that autobiography, he came out with an expression that this is not much. My experiences are far more intense than his friend who listened to him. He said, why don't you come out with your autobiography? He took 4 years to come out with his autobiography. Okay. You know, I must tell you, it is Mulk Raj Anand who says that writing an autobiography is facing oneself. It's very challenging. It's not easy to face oneself. And especially in the condition of among Dalits, there will be a social exclusion already in society. The moment a Dalit expresses oneself in his autobiography, Bama says that, even Madhopuri says that, you know, they will be denied from their own community, okay, because they feel that they have been represented wrongly by their fellow being. So this way, one expresses oneself, one attempts to educate, one attempts to be an activist. You know, there is one writer in Kannada too, a woman writer called Du Saraswati. She also has come out with her experiential writing called Igen Madiri. Okay, and she has come out with one modern Ramayana, which reminds us of folk Ramayana. I'm sure some of the Kannada teachers must be aware of it. Santimit Purana is the work that she has written. If you go to, sorry?
Santimi Ramayana.
Santimi Ramayana, Santimi Purana also. She also writes her columns in the name Santimi. Okay, she is a social activist too. Okay, you know, if we go by Thoreau, Thoreau, the great sage writer in America, what he says is, if he knew anyone else better than himself, he would have written about others. He cannot write about anyone else as he writes about himself. So every writing in one or the other way is autobiographical. If we go by that, the Santimi Ramayana or Santimi Purana, you know, speaks of Ramayana from a very fresh perspective of a deprived woman. Thereby, she gives an expression to her own individual self. This is the way, Dr. Chandan, I mentioned that all autobiographies cannot be homogenized. I think I have answered to your
Yes,
doubt. Okay, thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Madam, this is Shrikant from KSOU.
Where is Vikas?
Shrikant, ma'am.
Okay, okay, Shrikant. Okay, Shrikant.
I want to know your stand about this Madesnana and Pankti Veda, which is practiced in some of the temples in South Canada. So I do believe that the modern day Dalit writers are not taking hard stand regarding such issues where these where they follow such religious discrimination against Dalit. Don't you think that there is a need of again there is a need of focus of these Dalit writers? Means these Dalit writers have to focus on such issues which are discriminating Dalits from the upper caste community people. No, such religious discriminations are like bifurcating the people in the society. So such practices are bifurcating the people in society. There is this practice like Pankti Veda, which is not written in such writings by these authors.
Okay.
And moreover, like in autobiographies, madam, a writer has to be true to oneself. Like he has to be true to oneself. Means he cannot hide facts. So whereas in Dalit
Well, Shrikant, I heard you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shrikant, I was talking about, you know, the kind of denial to certain section of society. You are talking about one or two practices. Let me tell you, there are innumerable such practices. Okay. Where would your attention be when you don't have basic needs, whether about your basic needs or about your values or the other practices? First thing is, you know, I think this is a sort of a strategy that the society has used to deny any sort of protest from Dalits. They denied them the basic needs. When they are paying attention to these many things, where would they pay attention to other things? Okay. The very social dignity is denied. There is a bestialization of a section of society. Okay. They are seen as inhuman. You understand that? That's the next stage. Gradually, one must come there. I feel that though there is a lot of exposure, a lot of, it appears that there is a growth or there is a sort of a movement in or progress in this movement. But it has to take a little time. Of course, many are trying to touch upon these many issues. It's not that the very question that you have raised now means that you and many of the society people are aware of it, including Dalits. Okay, that's one thing. Where do you come across a writer like Devnur Mahadeva, who denied to be a professor in university after reading so much? He said he is not a scholar enough to teach in university. Then what else do you need as the example of refinement and the fineness in a scholar? Okay, and when you have somebody like that, and well, the other question you asked was, they don't take a stand. They must be true to.
They don't
their,
take hardline stand regarding such
yeah,
issues.
yeah. Let me tell you.
They have to, like, as a movement, it has to be a bit stronger. Like they have to be.
You know, Shrikant, Dr. Shrikant, I must tell you that being an outsider, it's easier to, say that, or easier to give some sort of, what I must say, subscribe some rules or laws or whatever it is. Okay. But you know, the world of autobiography again is another world, like a fictional world. Okay. When we enter autobiographical world, we must enter with certain preparation. We must be equipped, not the autobiographers, I tell you. If you feel that they are not true to, you know, Pratima Bedi writes her autobiography, Time Pass. Okay, I'm sure you are all, at least some of you are aware of Pratima Bedi, who is no more. It's believed that she passed away in a landslide in Himalaya when she had been to Himalayan excursion, along with her friend. In fact, there is one incident in her life which she denies outrightly in her autobiography, that her running on the Mumbai beach nude. Pratima Bedi was somebody who was known for her licentious lifestyle. With all freedom, she had given up all the norms of society, but she denies that she had run on the beach nude. Would I be judgmental and criticize Pratima Bedi, or would I read between the lines and draw some inference from this kind of writing? You know, if you find somebody hasn't expressed something, it's the advantage of a literature student to read between lines. That's why literature is. They must take a stand, all such things being outsiders. See, that's another word. Autobiographical word is another word. When we enter into that world, we have to be equipped, not them be ready for our requirements, isn't it? Yeah, thank you.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ನಮಸ್ತೆ.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಸರ್, ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಈಗ ಶ್ರೀಕಾಂತ್ ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿಚಾರವನ್ನ ಅವರು ಎತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಏನು ಪಂಕ್ತಿ ಭೇದ ನೀತಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಡೆ ಸ್ನಾನದ ವಿಚಾರ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಆಟೋಬಯೋಗ್ರಫಿ ಆತ್ಮಕಥೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕನೇ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಾನು ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಆತ್ಮಕಥೆಯೇತರ ಲೇಖನ ಬರಹಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಕೂಡ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಖರವಾಗಿ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಒಂದು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪಂಕ್ತಿ ಭೇದ ನೀತಿಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅರವಿಂದ್ ಮಾಲ್ಗತ್ತಿ ಅವರ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣದ ಆತ್ಮಕಥೆಯ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬಹಳ ದೀರ್ಘವಾಗಿ ಆ ಉಡುಪಿ ಪ್ರಸಂಗವನ್ನ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಜನಿವಾರ ಅನ್ನುವ ಅಧ್ಯಾಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ